left wing by 8 miles, 747. I'm sure you can see who it is, but pay attention. Get off the iPad.
NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello covers aviation for us. He's been following this. Tom, I know it was not close, but what happened and what is Spirit Airlines saying?
Well, the bottom line here is that according to the FAA, the Spirit Airlines plane was never that close to Air Force One. It was 8 miles, as you heard from that controller, and then at another point 11 miles away. And it was well within the FAA's own area, if you will, or the FAA's own restrictions. It could not exceed a certain amount of space before getting too close to Air Force One. Bottom line here is that an air traffic controller who had Air Force One on his scope was clearly wanting to make sure nobody was around it and was trying to tell that Spirit Airlines flight to hang left, if you will, approach Boston. And the Spirit Airlines pilot did exactly as told. I think when you look at the statements from everybody, and here's the statement from Spirit, by the way, let's put that up. Spirit Airlines says that, in fact, Flight 1300 would follow procedures and air traffic control instructions while en route to Boston, landing safely at Boston. Safety is always our top priority. The bottom line here is that this controller clearly may have been a little agitated because he had Air Force One in his zone. He didn't like planes too close to it, even though they were well within the allowable distance. And that controller got a little bit heated on the radio.
I wondered if it was sort of typical to talk to a pilot that way.
If you listen to air traffic control on a regular basis, I'll tell you, Kate, you would be surprised at the back and forth sometimes. You hear air traffic controllers calling pilots stupid. You hear pilots calling air traffic control stupid. I mean, it isn't always as, by the books.
Right.
They get heated.
Get off the iPad. All right, Tom Costello, thank you.
Okay.
There was explosive testimony on Capitol Hill today from the former director of the nation's public health agency. Susan Menares was fired by Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. just weeks after he chose her, and she was appointed director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC. Today, she answered tough questions from both Democrats and Republicans about what happened.
I had refused to commit to approving vaccine recommendations without evidence, fire career officials without cause, or resign, and I had shared my concerns with this committee. I told the secretary that if he believed he could not trust me, he could fire me.
Let's bring in NBC's Capitol Hill correspondent Julie Sirkin and health and medical reporter Berkeley Lovelace Jr. Julie, we just heard why Susan Menares was fired, or says she was fired. How does that go? How does that compare to what RFK Jr. has said in front of Congress as well? What else stood out to you today?
Well, RFK Jr. not sworn in, by the way. They tried to do that with Menares today, but either way, when you're testifying before Congress, you're expected to be truthful. RFK Jr. told members of the Senate that Menares left and he fired her because she, quote, lied. That totally was contradicted with what Menares said today. You heard a little bit of that. She, in fact, said that she left and she told them, essentially, you can fire me, because she refused to do anything to compromise her.
Cullings, Izzy Dane and Tatum Paxley, they had a match. I mean, there was no angle, nothing. They had a match back and forth, and Alexa Bliss's sister Abigail,
children, she just couldn't.
Paxley, and they got the win.
I thought it was a pretty good match.
Yeah. I mean, I was surprised.
For Aury, who said that.
It seemed like perhaps, I don't know if they're setting up backstage still Solruka and Zarya for a title shot, maybe, because they were backstage bickering, arguing with each other.
Secretary Kennedy censored CDC science, politicized its processes, and then
And remember an important point for both of these women's testimonies. They said that they refused to fire all of the career officials, the scientists that have worked at this agency for so long, and instead replace them with political appointees, as RFK Jr. allegedly wanted her to do. And so that is why they stayed strong. They were also criticized a little bit, Kate, for why they even came to the committee in the first place. The Republican chairman of that panel defending her for that.
And Berkeley, what do those career people at the CDC make of everything that's happened today?
Yeah, so I can say this validated a lot of concerns that agency staff had over the last several weeks. Among those concerns was that Secretary Kennedy was pushing for recommendations or policies that without the input of career scientists at the FDA or at the CDC, and as you heard just now, Monterez noted that Kennedy asked for rubber stamp approvals from her without input from career scientists, and there were concerns that he could make changes to the childhood vaccine schedule, which came up quite a few times during this hearing as well. There are concerns as well about the future of the pandemic. As we've noted before, Kennedy has made a lot of moves to limit vaccines, including mRNA technology, the technology behind the COVID shots for Pfizer Moderna, and also whether or not those could be used for a future pandemic for bird flu as well. So this, in terms of agency staff, there's a lot of at least confirmation from what came from Monterez today about their concerns about the future of the CDC right now.
All right, Berkeley Lovelace, Julie Sirkin, thanks to you both. A suspect is now in custody after carrying out what the FBI is calling an act of terror against one of its offices. The FBI says Donald Henson used his car to intentionally ram the entrance gate of the Pittsburgh field office early this morning and then ran away, abandoning the car. No one was injured. Henson was arrested several hours later. NBC's Aaron McLaughlin is following this one for us. Aaron, what details do we have about what happened?
Okay, we're now hearing that the suspect, Donald Henson, is expected to appear in court today. NBC News has obtained the complaint against him. That complaint outlining two separate charges, including damaging U.S. government property with damage exceeding $1,000, and then the second charge being assaulting, resisting, or impeding certain officers' employees with a dangerous weapon. Worth noting that according to the complaint, there was a security guard on duty in the early morning hours of the attack, 7 feet away from where Henson allegedly rammed his car into the gates behind me. Worth noting, though, this complaint stops short of filing any terrorism charges, even though authorities say they consider this to be a terror attack. Take a listen.